Boys and girls, ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of Clutch Conversations. It's your boy Mike. We back at you now. It's not live. This is a pre-recorded episode. If you're watching the premiere for this, then it is Thursday night at 8, August 17th, and your boy is in Daytona, and we doing the damn thing, man. Shout out to all the folks gonna show up in Daytona, man. Me and Takar, we definitely looking forward to Daytona. Speaking of Takar, man, ain't nothing changed just because it's pre-recorded. You know, we've got to give a shout out to my lovely wife, Takara. Appreciate everything you do. We're gonna have, like I said, we're gonna have a lot of fun in Daytona this weekend. Y'all definitely show us some love in the comments. And don't stop there. Do us a solid and show the channel some love. Hit that like button. If you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and make sure you hook smash that notification bell so you can get notifications every time we drop a video on the channel. Shout out to all the people that's checking out the premiere right now, and also shout out to all the folks that will catch the replay, and shout out to the audio only gang. Audio recordings of Clutch Conversations are available on all major podcasting platforms. That's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more. When you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform, please be sure to follow, rate, and review. It really helps us out. We really appreciate the feedback. Definitely appreciate the support. Speaking of support, if you're involved in this hobby in any shape, form, or fashion, make sure you're supporting US Art and US Art Florida. If you're going to be in Daytona this weekend, definitely check out the US Art auction. I believe it's at 8 p.m. But definitely, yeah, check that out. The links for both organizations, so both US Art and US Art Florida, the links for both organizations are in the description of this video. If you're not a member, definitely go grab your membership. If you're able to donate, donate what you can, and be sure to spread the word about both these organizations that help protect our rights as reptile keepers. So tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. We're going to do a real quick shout out to the sponsors. Big dreams start in small towns. Small Town Xotics is a family-ran business that specializes in high-quality ball python morphs, western hognoses, and select leopard geckos. They are proud members of US Art Florida, and the Orient Society. Stay connected with Small Town Xotics on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Witness their journey as they grow their business and showcase their animals to the world. Thank you, Small Town Xotics, for sponsoring the show.
Art comes in many forms. At Armless Angels, it comes to life.
Baby, baby, won't you listen to me? I got that flavor, I know you're dying to feed. I ain't no dancer, just got some hip in my feet. Now throw your hands up. Ooh, you bring the lighter, I got the fuse. You make a fire, I'll add the fuel. Follow my lead, just watch your shoes. Gotta turn the heat up to get this cool.
Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you know who looking like this? Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you know who looking like this? Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you know who looking like this? Who you know who looking like this for real? Who you know who looking like this?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, good, man. I appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. Especially being
having me on.
flexible. Oh yeah, for sure, man. I've got like a list of folks that I really want to get on the show, and you're definitely one of the folks on that list. So glad we can make it work it out. I appreciate the flexibility on recording on a different night other than Thursday. So all that works out very well. So really appreciate it, man. Looking forward to tonight's chat.
Absolutely. You know what? When I saw you come up a bunch on Instagram over the past couple months, and then when I spoke to you back in, what was it, April and May, when you asked me to come on, I started watching a few more of your interviews, and you're definitely at the, in my opinion, at the top of the class in terms of what people are doing in the podcast segment. So I'm excited to be on today.
I really appreciate it, man. Really appreciate the feedback, man. It means a lot, man. For sure, for sure. Cool, man. So I guess we can jump right into it. So I guess let's start out by kind of setting the stage, because I want to get a little bit of information about your background, experience, and things of that nature. So I realize this is a question that gets asked a lot. So feel free to be as brief as you need to be. And if you want to tell like a story or two, feel free to do it. But just tell us a little bit about what kind of got you started in the reptile space.
That's a hard question to answer because I've been doing this ever since I can remember. So, I mean, from 5 years old, 6 years old, when they opened the first pet store near me in Pittsburgh, I was, going there to buy my first green anole or to buy my first tree frog or leopard gecko or something like that. And it caught my eye at that point. And from a young age, I joined the Pittsburgh Herpetological Society, which at that point, I don't even know if it exists anymore, but they used to hold the meetings at the Pittsburgh Zoo. So my mom would drive me out. We'd go to those meetings. We'd go to the reptile shows that were about an hour away. So I've been doing this ever since I can remember. I lived across from a giant park. So I would, walk across the street, go in the streams and catch crayfish and everything like that. So it's sort of something I've always been in. As far as ball pythons, which is what I focus on now, 2019. Well, I wasn't allowed to have snakes. That was the hard cutoff of what I could do. I had everything other than snakes in my mom's house. So I moved out and I got my first corn snake, when in my early 20s. I'm like almost 38 now. So in 2019, I got my first ball python, and it was at a reptile show locally in Pittsburgh. I think it was like a pastel male. And I fell in love with it because it wasn't like any other snake I had ever had before. Colubrids, corn snakes, rat snakes, they're usually pretty flighty, hard to handle. I did have a carpet python at one point a long time ago, and it was just crazy, always biting me, and it kind of turned me off to snakes for a while. But when I tried with the ball python, the fact that it was so tame, the fact that it was so slow, and, it gets the nickname the pet rock. But it was easy to handle, and that really drew me in. So at that point, I started going down that whole rabbit hole of, all right, I want this and I want that and I want this, and I found out what a blue-eyed Lucy was, so I bought my first blue-eyed Lucy, and those were actually the first snakes I bred and hatched in 2020, right as soon as the pandemic started. I think they hatched like the month after the pandemic happened, and then I just started going further and further into it. So I've been doing it for about 5 years now.
Nice. So when you first picked up the first ball python, obviously it was just for a pet. So at what point did it kind of like snap on you? Like, were you, when you started like to want to breed and stuff like that, like what was the thing that kind of made it click to you that says, hey, I want to breed these, I want to reproduce them?
Having that first male, he wasn't, I don't know, maybe 200 grams when I got him. He was so fun to have. Like, he was such a cool pet. And once I started looking into it more, that morph market was around, so it was easier to kind of visualize and see the different types of ball pythons they had. And then I found a blue-eyed Lucy on there. And this specific one was probably a lesser Mojave or something, which is an all-white snake with bright blue eyes. And that blew my mind because I had never seen anything like that before at that point. So I was like, holy crap, like this is a really cool looking animal. Like, I want to get one of those. So I did. And I got a couple females and I got a male. And at that point, they were breeding by the end of 2019. And that's really what kind of kicked into high gear for me. Once I had those, I think that first clutch I had, I don't know, it was maybe between 4 and 6 eggs. And at that point, at the start of the pandemic, those blue-eyed Lucies were selling like upwards of $500 or more.
Nice.
And then I was like, wow, I can sell snakes at $500 a piece, and I love doing it. That might not be a bad thing to get into. At that point, then I started, really upping my game. I think I bought my first ARS rack at that point. I started breeding rats at that point because, I had some that just wouldn't take frozen thawed. And then everything just kind of snowballed at that point to the point where I am now.
So when did you decide to make it a business? Was that kind of an immediate decision, or was that an iterative process?
Man, I think after hatching that first Blue Eye Lucy clutch and selling them for what I was able to sell them for, after it improved to my wife, because my wife hated snakes and she's still sort of afraid of them, but she hated snakes. So the fact that I had them in the house at all was like a blessing. Once I was able to show her, hey, this is a hobby that I have, I like doing it, but on top of that, there's potential to create some money for the family, some extra money, right? Before it turns into like a full-time thing. So at that point, I was like, all right, I need to start kind of looking into this more. I need to start building a nice group of breeding animals that I can put together, have a better year the following year. Because at that point, I think maybe I had 3 or 4 clutches that year in 2020. And then 2021, I had, I think, 17, 18 clutches.
Oh, wow.
And I produced close to 100 hatchlings, but I think I had 1 clutch that produced any visual clowns. And I think I maybe had 1 or 2 clutches that produced any visual pieds. So I was very heavy on just like the incomplete dominant genes. And then I realized I was doing it wrong. Because I produced 100 snakes. I think maybe I sold like 40,000 worth of snakes out of those 100 babies. And then I was like, I can do this as a business. I can make this into something. I made 100 babies this year. I made around 40 grand off of it. I can scale this and make it into something that's more profitable for me. And then I started, watching a lot more on YouTube. I really zeroed in on what Ozzy was doing. And that was having a smaller collection. It was still in his home, but he's creating some of the highest end snakes that I had seen anywhere at that point. So I actually bought 2 snakes off of Ozzy at that point. And then I started selling all of my adult females from that season that didn't have any recessive traits, that weren't pied or visual clowns, which was most of them, if not all of them. And I started buying everything that was pied and clown that I could get my hands on at that point. And so that was late 2021. And stuff was expensive at that point. So you're paying like top dollar for all these snakes, and especially if you could find any females that were adults, that were recessive, or things that were close to being adults. So I basically sold everything off that was adult that had laid for me. I started buying a bunch of new stuff. My biggest investment at that point was a pair of lightning pieds, MJ Xanthic pieds. They were adults already. They laid for me the following summer in 2022. I think they produced 6 eggs, and I didn't hold any back because I was like kind of hurting for money at that point. But those 6 eggs, I think the females were selling for $5 grand a pop, and the males were selling for $3,500 a pop. And
Nice.
I think I had 3 of each. So it made, so that kind of proved that I can do it, I can scale it, and that I needed to kind of go full force into the whole, this thing needs to become a business, and I need to start doing it now.
So I was doing like some quick math in my head. And so, like you said, you had 6 babies at 3.3, and you gave the prices. So that was over 30 grand. And I know you got a video on YouTube about making 30 grand from 2 snakes. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but are those the 2 snakes you're talking about?
Yep, that was them.
Nice.
And nobody else at that point in the US anyways was breeding MJ pieds. They had, Xanthic pieds, they had TSK or VPI or TSK pieds. But nobody was breeding MJ pieds, so the sticker price for them was astronomical. So they made me a really good amount of money. I was able to take that money and pay off bills and reinvest it to where I am now. And I have my collection has evolved a lot since even last year when I sold those babies. But yeah, those were the 2 snakes that made me the 30 grand there.
Nice. And so you started out as Blind Strike Exotics, is that correct?
Yeah.
And then you switched over to Snake Limited.
Yeah. So about 12 months ago, it was like the end of August last year. For some reason, my Instagram account got deleted.
Oh wow.
Instagram never. So this was like 5 years or 4 years at that point of building this Instagram account. I had probably 1,000+ posts at that point. Thousands of followers, more than I have now, and they just deleted the account. They didn't tell me why. They said it's going to be permanently deleted in 7 days. I tried to contact them to get some information and try to figure out what was going on. They never replied to me. They just deleted it.
Wow.
So I created a new Blind Strike account, but I ran that sort of for a couple months, and then I was like, you know what? I like the name Blind Strike Xotics. It's a mouthful. I think I can kind of shorten the name a little bit and make it a little more, I guess, modern, So, snake is, that's what I do. I sell snakes, right? And the SNKE spelling of it, the abbreviation, to me, in this more techie world, was sort of kind of more on the nose of what I was doing.
That's pretty cool.
So that's what I switched to that last. I think I formally filled out the paperwork in October, and then I formally announced it in December last year, 2022.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When I was going through the process of getting my logo created, and I was looking at some color options and just kind of how I wanted it to pop and kind of the vibes and whatnot I wanted to give off with the color, that orange and black from the previous logo, that stuck out to me. So that was the influence of why I went with the orange and black, because I really liked how that looked. Yeah. So
I love that too.
But I like this too. I like the yellow and black too. It's nice.
Yeah. I had a hard time deciding to change that. My issue with that old logo was the green eyes. Well, I like the green eyes and it was a nice color change, but I want it to be just two colors, the black and the orange, but I didn't like the black and the orange. So I started kind of drifting more towards this yellow gold color. And I hate to say that the Steelers and Pittsburgh has any influence on it being black and gold, but I guess it subconsciously did.
Probably does.
Because that's where it ended up. But I like, I like the way it looks on everything, even my watch band here.
Nice. Clean.
It worked for me. So I changed the color. I was trying to get more of a gold tone. But this works.
I like it. I like it a lot. I'm not gonna lie.
But I kept the same logo. I just changed the name. So that's kind of the other part of it.
In fact, I don't know if you heard the song, if you had the audio turned on or whatnot, but when I shared the flyer for this, I had the black and yellow song.
Oh, really?
Wiz Khalifa. It's black and yellow, black and yellow.
No, I can hear it. Yeah, you know what? Every time I'm on Instagram, one of my biggest pet peeves, I'm not a social media person, is that when I'm my wife's sitting next to me and it's just she's scrolling through Instagram or TikTok and she's blah, noises. I'm just put it on mute. So every time I'm on Instagram, my volume's always down, but I'll have to go back and look at it. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Most of the time when I'm scrolling through social media too, my volume's down as well.
I hate being out somewhere and somebody's volume just turned up all the way and turn up the conversation.
Or it inevitably you'll be it'll just pop up for whatever reason and it'll switch to some weird random where someone's saying some random thing and it's just not appropriate for the moment. You're oh, my bad.
Yeah, or it goes from a normal volume to somebody screaming and you're just yeah.
Yeah, so I always operate with my phone turned down 9 times out of 10. Yeah. So it's funny how you mentioned you build your collection at first, because that reminds me a lot of how I built my collection too, right? So when I got into it, I was really focused on things that were really eye-catching, and I had a lot. I was very incomplete, dominant, heavy, and I had some recessive. I got clown early on, I got hypo early on, and I even got some pod early on, but I didn't really have a real focus when I was getting into projects. In fact, projects is probably overselling it. I was just really just accumulating snakes. Yeah. But as time kind of went on, I got connected with some folks who had way more knowledge about the industry and how things should go than I do. And I just started like really got soaking up the knowledge, getting in groups like Ozzy's group that helps, Billy's group, Justin's group, like all those groups out there, like all that stuff kind of helps. And it really just kind of helps like pull you along. And so like I quickly pivoted on how I was building my collection. And I started doing similar to you. I start like moving out some of those animals that didn't really meet the needs of my projects just so I can really refine it, right? Because I believe in quality over quantity as well. I know like people say that and it's kind of become cliche, but like there's legitimate benefit to that, right? Because at the end of the day, you're going to do the same amount of work. So you might as well maximize like the work and leverage the space that you have by focusing on like these higher end animals that are going to push their projects forward and kind of push the industry forward.
Yeah, and that was my I never wanted this to grow to be something so big that I was going to require a huge facility, that I was going to require, 2, 3, 4 employees. I wanted to be able to do it all myself. I get quality control, I guess, kind of. When we moved actually mid-pandemic, and like the end of 2020, in the house we moved into, which is where we're at now. This space, the snake room, it was a big empty room underneath the garage. There was nothing in it. It was like a storage room. It's like, I think 15 by 15 or something. I was like, this is the house. Like we literally, a big selling point of us buying this house was because I could have a snake room, and it was detached. Nobody had to walk in here if they didn't want to. My wife didn't even have to see this room if she didn't want to. So we literally half the reason we bought this house was because I could have a snake room in it. So it's contained, and I didn't want to have to outgrow this room. So that's why my shift went from, all right, I'm going to breed an Enchi to a Mojave and see what comes out, Mojave Enchis, Mochis, to being more selective with what I was trying to breed. And I even kind of doubled down on that again this season. I had a bunch of stuff that ended up not going for me towards the beginning of the year, and I sold off a bunch of adult females that I didn't have anything to pair them up to. They were still pieds that had a couple of genes in them. But I was like, you know what? I'm not doing anything with these females. I can get some good deals on better snakes because I didn't have a whole lot of DG in here at that point. I think I had like 2 snakes. So I sold off like 10, 15 adult snakes that I wasn't using. And I ended up getting like 4 DG clown combo snakes from Chimera. That I'd had nothing like that in my collection. Now I have 5 females that have DG clown and a male to breed to them. So I took all this stuff and just condensed it down into 5 snakes that next year they're going to be breeding. They're already 1,000 grams a piece. 3 or 4 of them
nice.
And they'll be breeding for me by the end of the year. And I'm going to be producing DG clowns, and the male I got from Canova to go with them has 5 genes, including confusion in them. So, it changes the game. And if I can sell, a couple snakes for 2, 3, 4, 5 grand a pop, rather than selling tons of snakes for 500 a pop, it makes your life a lot easier. Because again,
100%.
Rodents, I hate rodents. I hate breeding them, but I have to at this point. And I don't want to do more of it. Like I'm okay with where I'm at, so I don't want to have 400 snakes in here and then have to make up the difference with the rodents. I'm like happy with the size I have now. So that means I need to produce higher quality stuff.
100%. Yeah. I'm not a fan of the rodent work. The rodent work is hard. Like it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
for me, it's more work than the snakes, and we don't have a ton, and we got ASFs. So I don't know what you're breeding. Are you breeding Norwegians? Or are you been breeding?
Breeding everything. I'm doing ASFs, Norwegians, and mice. But
okay.
I think I'm getting out of mice, because my issue with mice is they don't seem to breed consistently. And when they do, and I pull them out and I put them in the grow out tubs, every once in a while I have like a litter of mice that just don't survive, and they all end up dying in the grow out tub.
Oh wow.
So we actually were on vacation last week, and I came home and the house reeked, because in one of these tubs, like 5 of the mice ended up dying for some reason. Whereas I never have Norwegians or ASFs do that. So I think I'm going to try to get rid of mice altogether. The only reason I haven't yet is because I just had 29 Brazilian rainbow boas come out. So I was trying to feed them the smaller mice while I could. But as soon as I'm able to get them on bigger prey items, I'm going to get rid of the mice altogether.
Gotcha. Yes, I don't have any experience breeding anything other than ASFs, but just in passing and having conversations with folks, like people say that mice are probably like one of the harder ones to breed. And then I like the ASFs because they're fairly clean. Again, I don't have anything to compare it to, but just from having like conversations with other people, and I know for us, like they're fairly clean. But when we do have to clean, like it's a lot of work. Like we do like full like tub switches like once a week. That's about how long we can let it go.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work. I do like the ASFs in the sense that like they produce, or at least the ones I have, they produce regularly. Again, don't really have anything to compare it to, but from what I've heard, they grow like slower than like the Norwegians.
Forever to grow.
But for me, like right now, like them growing slow is like the least of my worries, because I got so many girls and stuff that are off food because like they're getting ready to drop like in the next month or whatever. Now they're just piling up on me. In fact, like I'm gonna have to like euthanize and cull some of them or sell some of them soon, because like I'm running out of space. Like I got so many ASFs right now, like it's ridiculous. Like like I overdid it.
It's a good problem to have. But I wasn't able to locate ASFs around here until the breeding groups I bought like 6 months ago. Since I started breeding them, I have maybe 5 or 6 snakes that would not eat for me like for months, and now they're taking like 3 or 4 a week religiously. So the only reason that I still produce all 3 types of rodents is because I still have some that want mice. I still have some that only take ASFs. In my bigger females, I'm not at the point with my ASFs that I can afford to give them 3 or 4. I have 4,000 gram females, and I can't feed them 1 ASF or 2 ASFs. Like it's just not enough of a meal for them. So they still get a Norwegian, every couple of weeks. But I've cut back on Norwegian. I think I had a big ARS rack that has 24 tubs in it, and I was using all of them to breed Norwegians. And now I only have, I think, 12 of those I use for Norwegians now. So I cut back Norwegians a lot because of how much the ASFs have made it easier. They're definitely less smelly. Norwegians are a disaster. They're so smelly. Like, such a mess. But ASFs are so nasty. Like they're so mean compared to like I could stick my hands in with my Norwegians or my mice and wouldn't take a single bite. I mean, I've bled so many times from ASFs nipping me that it's insane. Like
oh really?
Yeah, compared to Norwegians and mice in 5 years. So I don't like ASFs because of that. They're a little more aggressive.
Gotcha. So we've been fortunate in that regard. Our ASFs, they're like super tame. Like I might have once, maybe twice, I've been nipped in like the over a year that we've had them. Yeah, like
I won't
rarely. And if one nips me, like that's it, you're gone.
Well, I do that too, but it's like all of them. Like
yeah,
you can't breed it out at this point unless I try to go get a different colony from somebody else. But I mean, I have tons of them now. I'm just not going to start the colony over again at this point. So
yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I'm just very cautious when I'm in there. I don't need any more blood on my hands from ASFs.
Yeah, I've definitely heard a lot of people talk about like just how nippy the ASFs were. Yep. I'm glad ours aren't like that, because like that would be a pain.
Yeah, you're lucky.
How many snakes are in the collection right now?
I don't keep count. I would say I probably have like 40 adult females, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I probably have 15 to 20 females that I'll be adding to the breeding rotation for next year. And this year so far, in terms of holdbacks, I probably have 20 holdbacks at this point from what I've bred so far this year, but more to come. So, I mean, it's the stuff I'm keeping. It's probably around 100 snakes right now, because I'm always kind of turning things over. The way I look at it is if I'm not using it, I don't have a plan for it, and it's not some genetic masterpiece, it's leaving. Like I don't keep it just to keep an extra mouth to feed here.
Right.
If it's not serving a purpose, I actually just sold off. I shipped them tonight. I had a dreamsicle male, a yellow-bellied pied het lab female, and a pied het lab female, all adults that I had no plan for. I wasn't doing anything with them. So I sold them, and I use that money to either pay off bills or reinvest it because, I'm working a DG clown project and I'm working a DG pied project, and I'm trying to bring those two together. And those projects are going to be worth infinitely more to the business than, working a dreamsicle project. So I just kind of cut bait on it. And so there's never a stagnant number here, and I don't just keep holding on to stuff. If I'm holding on to something, it's because it's making them projects that I'm working on, bigger and better.
Gotcha. You mentioned kind of like not wanting to get bigger than like a certain size. Like, are you near that size now, and it's just like a constant rotation to kind of keep you at the size you are now? Or is there some room for maybe like some 10, 20, 30% growth in terms of like size of the collection?
I've done a really good job of rearranging the snake room. Like I've probably rearranged it 4 or 5 times since I lived here for 3 years. And I think I can add maybe 1 or 2 more racks if I'm good at Tetris. My other option is moving the rodents and trying to get like a rodent shed outside my back door. But that would involve me, building a rodent shed. And I kind of like them in here, although not having them in here would get rid of the stink. So it just depends on whether or not I can get a rodent shed. But I'm assuming that at some point I'm going to need to get another mini 130 for the hatchlings, and I'll probably need another 5540. I think so. Yeah, I'll probably need another 2 racks at some point. Judging by, and that's based off of like this year with the market being down, that everybody keeps talking about. It's been hard to sell snakes, and the only consistent way that I've been able to sell snakes is by offering sales. So with that in mind, with prices and snakes kind of going down a little bit, either you need to be making some stuff that's like super high end that people are wanting to buy right away, that's going to fly off the shelf, that's very unique, or you need to be producing like some of the mid-tier stuff that I'm producing. I can make $2,000 off of it, but like somebody wants to get a free snake with that. They're willing to spend $2,000, but they want another snake that's $2,000 with it. And that's really the only way I've been able to sell the higher end stuff. The stuff that's been like $500 range, it'll sell by itself. But when there's 40,000 snakes on Morph Market, you need to be creative with how you're trying to sell that stuff. So with that in mind, I'm kind of expecting that I'm probably going to need to buy another hatchling rack, and I'm probably going to need to produce 40, 50 clutches next year to make this a full-time gig so that I can get rid of my day job and fully commit myself to, ball pythons.
Gotcha. So you say you do like buy one, get one on like certain levels of snakes?
Yeah. So like what I did in July, because I was starting to get a lot of backlog of snakes, and like everything, it's weird. Like my season was a bunch of stuff hatched in May, June, early July, to the point where I had like 30 snakes, I think, that I sold in the month of July because of the BOGO sale, because I was filling up my rack. And then I didn't know at that point that my rainbow bow was going to have a litter of 29 babies, but I'm glad I sold off those ball pythons because that took up 3 rows of my mini 130. So snakes just weren't selling by themselves. So I decided, all right, I'm just going to sell these things. I tried a 40% off sale. Nobody bit. I literally didn't have a single inquiry. I think I did that on 4th of July. So the BOGO sale, what I did was, you buy a male or a female, whichever one's more expensive, and you get a snake of the opposite sex free that's equal or lesser value. So if you bought a $2,000 female, you can get a $2,000 male for free, and vice versa. So, most people, I have them priced similarly. I had a couple that I just put together as pairs with that reduced pricing, and it worked. And I, had a really good month last month. I sold out, I think, all but 5 of the snakes that I had, and those 5 didn't sell because I think they're all males, and I didn't have anything else to pair them up with. I was low. I kept so many females back that I kind of ran out of females to sell. But yeah, I sold all but 5 hatchlings last month.
Nice. That's an interesting strategy. Yeah, and it sounded like it was very successful.
There's 40,000 snakes right now on there. There was over 40 at the beginning of the year. It dipped. I watched this religiously because I need to know what the competition is, right? And it was dipping. I think it was below 38,000 for a while, but it's inching back up to 40 again, which because everybody's clutches
are hatching stuff now. Yeah.
And so if I'm not producing anything that's real low end. Like I had a couple clutches, and like my worst snake that came out of it was a double het clown pied with no other genes in it. So that was $100 snake. So I was just trying to get rid of it because it didn't do me any good sitting here in the snake rack. You know, I was every week it sat in here. I was wasting a couple bucks feeding it, and it was taking up shelf space. So I wanted to just liquidate that sort of stuff. And the nicer stuff I was producing that was, you know, a pied head ultramel that had 3, 4, or 5 extra genes in it. It
Nice.
may have been a $3,000 or $4,000 snake last year, but it's not now. And people weren't even willing to buy it for $2,000 this year. So you dangle the carrot and, hey, buy this powerhouse snake for $2,000 and you get something similar for free, and it worked. So, and I don't know whether or not that's in my best interest, but you know, I can either sell that snake for $1,000 or sell it for $2,000 and give somebody a free one, right? I just think the strategy of, hey, spend $2,000, spend $1,000, and I did it with all snakes, so it wasn't even just the high end stuff. It was everything from 500 up to 2,000. It sold everything, and that's what mattered to me. Is that, you know, those 30 snakes I sold, those 30 snakes cost me at least $1 each per week to feed, and they're taking up rack space. So, you know, every single month they're costing me at least probably $120, $150 at the very least. So, you know, I could have sat on them forever and ran out of rack space, or just get rid of them and pay off whatever bills I had. So I chose to pay off my bills.
Yeah, that makes great sense. Great sense. So let's talk about like your financial planning and like management. So it sounds like you got a pretty good handle over that. You mentioned earlier that you wanted to do this like full time. So what does the plan look like? Do you kind of have it laid out or kind of based on current thinking? Like where are you at with that?
This year really threw a wrench in everything, I think, because as of so 2 years ago, you know, I had 100 snakes and made 40 grand. Last year, I think that was the lightning pied clutch. I think I produced only 4 clutches last year because I sold all of my adult females from the year before, and I made between 35 and 40 grand from those 4 clutches of snakes. So this year, based off of what I was breeding and how many clutches I was expecting to have, I was like, man, I could be making $500,000. Like realistically, I was projecting that I was going to be making $300,000 to $700,000 depending on what everything sold for and what my odds came out as.
Right.
I have more clutches than I've ever had before. I'm going to have more hatchlings than I've ever had before. And like this year's just destroyed all that. Like I would at this point hope that I can clear 6 figures, but I don't think it's going to happen. So my projection went from being $500,000 this year to being like maybe 6 figures, maybe. So my plan was, all right, you know, I need to get rid of a lot of these females that are just pied, you know, I had like 4 pastel pied females. So I got rid of them all. I kept 1. And things like that. And that's when I started buying the DG clowns. I bought, you know, I have a pastel NC DG clown, 2 pastel DG clowns, a super pastel NC DG clown. These are all females that are going to be breeding next year. And that's when it's like, I need to get some more snakes in here that are going to produce some higher end stuff so that I can raise the floor a little bit and I'm not just trying to BOGO everything. So, you know, the plan was for this year to be the year that gave me my clearance to quit the day job, but it just all fell apart. which was kind of a kick to the nuts. But I mean, this is still what I want to do. So it's kind of just pivoting and figuring out what works, and doing the BOGO sale was something else that I never ever planned on doing. But the money I made there was basically cut in half by having to do a BOGO sale, but it sold those snakes and it got me new customers.
Right.
And and on top of that, you get new customers, and those people are happy. Hopefully, they come back. Hopefully, not on a BOGO sale. Maybe they're so satisfied with the purchase and with the customer service. So I would hope that next year, because of what I'll be producing next year, next year's like my year where I can say, hey, I'm comfortable doing this. I can quit my day job and focus on this 24/7, because there's a lot of facets of it that I don't think people realize. It's not just producing snakes. It's the social media aspect of it. It's building the following. It's being on Instagram and being on YouTube, and all those little things kind of add up and help you build your business. And on top of that, you need to know how to sell your snakes. And I think that's the one thing that benefits me the most, is that I'm willing to make a deal. And I sort of changed my sales policy early in the summer when I realized snakes weren't going to sell themselves anymore, like to being, all offers are welcome. Meaning, if you see a snake listed at $1,000, send me an offer, and there's a good chance that maybe I accept it. Don't be afraid. And previously, I was actually the exact opposite, and that was, if it's listed for $1,000, you're paying $1,000, because the snakes were selling themselves.
Right.
They just, I think when I started doing this 5 years ago, there were under 10,000 snakes on Morph Market. So if you had a dreamsicle for sale, there were only a handful of dreamsicles, so if you had it listed for $2,500, you're selling it for $2,500. Now, you have to be competitive, and you need to be willing to make a deal with people. So, the other aspect of all this is I'm willing to make a deal, and I want these snakes sold. I'm not in the business of holding things until, I become an old grandpa. I'm in the business. I'm in the business of selling snakes. So that's what I'm doing here. So, I think that's benefited me greatly. I've talked to quite a few people that are having a hard time selling snakes, and I've kind of given them my point of view on it. And some of them, take my advice, and some of them waffle at it because they don't want to sell it, for cheaper than what they feel like it's worth. But this, it's a business. It's not about your feelings, right? It's about
Exactly. Like the fair market value is like the price that willing participants are willing to sell and buy it, right? And so, like, if you might think it's worth 3,000, 4,000, or whatever, but there may not be anyone that shares that thought with you, right? And so, if the market's saying that it's 2,000 or 1,500, like, you either hold it and keep it, or you sell it at 1,500. It's just kind of like where we are, right? It's more of a buyer's market, for sure, right now. And so you kind of got to be willing to adjust. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you want to be in this long term. At least that's my thoughts on it. You got to be able to adjust, right? Because there'll probably be a time where the market isn't quite like this, and maybe it's like it builds up more, and it's not quite you having to like drop the prices like so much with the snakes. But I think kind of right now you kind of got to adjust to where the market's at, and there's so many different like kind of factors that's playing into that. So you got the overall economy and kind of where things are. You've got like crazy inflation, so everything's costing more, right? And so like people have to make that decision, and so you kind of got to factor all that stuff into it. It's like any business. And so when you're doing this as a business, you got to think about it from a business perspective. And if your prices don't align with the market, it's a good chance you're not going to sell the snake. And so there's a holding cost to that, like you touched on earlier. You got to feed, you got to house and stuff like that. So if you want to sell the snake, you kind of have to adjust. That's just how I feel. Does it suck? Yeah, because like I'm like you, like I did have like these projections of selling snakes at higher values when I was like putting the numbers together. Obviously, I knew it wasn't going to be like I know in like some projects, sometimes the value goes down depending on what you make. Like there's fluctuations in the price and stuff, but I didn't really expect like some of the hits that we do see and some of the drops that we do see in the market. And I think that's part of what has people kind of hesitant to buy as well, is the fact that like you ever see like those, remember those Walmart commercials, watch for falling prices, like when they were like how like the rollbacks and all that kind of stuff. Like that's really kind of how it is a lot sometimes. And like you see like prices that are all over the place. I won't call any jeans or anything out like that specifically, but you see like prices that are all over the place. And so it kind of makes you like, I don't know. And it makes you like think about it like twice, 3 times, 4 times now, because you're kind of looking at it through that lens.
A good example is when in 21, when I decided to switch over to being kind of higher end stuff, I bought a male from Aussie. It was a super OD yellow belly inchy leopard pied male. And I think I bought him for $7,500 at that point. And Aussie was the only person making these. He made a handful of them, and I got one of them, and I was like, wow, all right, this is awesome. And so I'm breeding him this year, and I bred him a bunch of OD pied females, and I'm looking at prices because he had one clutch come out a little earlier to a pastel inchy pied. And I mean, prices dropped on those. I mean, they're maybe $2,000 to $3,000 if you can get that for them at this point. And actually, the one male that I sold from that earlier clutch was part of the buy one get one free thing. So technically, I sold him for $1,000. So, you know, I bought this male for $7,500 a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and now I'm selling offspring from him for $1,000 to $2,000 that are similar genes. So prices right now it's bad in my opinion. Like it's bad in terms of trying to sell and get your money out of it. But that's due to everybody rushing in. I was lucky enough that I got in before the COVID boom of it. And I was already producing stuff at that point and was selling stuff at a good clip before the crash happened. But it's hitting me too, and it's hitting everybody. You know, any of the big breeders, I would assume that a lot of them, I don't know about Justin, but I know that some of the bigger breeders are willing to deal a little more now. I know Billy, I'm part of his Patreon, and he's offering, group pricing a lot on different things. You know, I bought a couple females from Aussie a couple months ago, and he was willing to kind of negotiate on the price a little bit on them too. So, I mean, everybody's feeling
Willing and dealing.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's feeling it right now. If you're going to buy a snake, now's the time to do it. But the problem is, so many people flooded the market with snakes, and I do this as often as I check Morph Market to see how many snakes there are. I kind of segment it out to see how many snakes are in certain price ranges, and the majority of those snakes are $1,000 or under, like 75-80% of them, right?
Easily, yeah,
easy. And you don't want to be in that group, and you also don't want to produce that stuff because it's harder to sell, because then you're really slashing your prices trying to get those things sold. After a lot of these people that, you know, gobbled snakes up in 2020, 2021, 2022, kind of get out of the business, I think that's when we're going to see stuff kind of normalize again. You know, when there's not 40,000 snakes on Morph Market, when there's not a bunch of Mojaves and there's not a bunch of Enchis and there's not a bunch of, you know, just het clowns, I think we'll see prices normalize. And hopefully at that point, for those of us that are serious about this and trying to run a business out of it, it kind of makes it a little more profitable and easier for us to actually run a consistent business out of it. You know, we'll be back on our feet, I guess.
Yeah, so there definitely was an influx of like folks coming in during like COVID. That's when I got in, like full disclosure. But I plan on sticking around though. Like I plan on riding this out and like sticking around. I definitely have long-term plans for what we want to do, like as a brand, as a business, and things of that nature. So with any business, any kind of venture, like you're going to run into some hard times, and there's an element of risk and things of that nature. And you just kind of got to be able to like kind of ride it out. And so I just strive to make decisions that keep us positioned in a place to where we can ride out something like this. And so that's the plan for us, is just ride this out and continue like pushing the projects forward, and then just go from there. But yeah, definitely want to be on the other side, and I'll
I
have
mean,
some stories to tell maybe.
I mean, I don't know how much exactly I've invested in this, because a lot of it is, I've bought stuff and sold stuff. So I don't know the exact amount of money that I've actually physically put into this, because some of that money is like recycled. But it's been over 200K in the 5 years I've been doing this. And like, it's at the point where it can't fail, like it needs to work for me, which is what I'm constantly trying. I'm not in the position where I can say, okay, I bought 20 snakes and I spent $5,000 on them. This sucks. I'm getting out. I'm going to sell them to somebody for $500. Like this is something I'm in, I'm in 100%. I'm working every day to build Instagram, to build YouTube, to build my Patreon, to produce better stuff, to get new customers, to try to find new ways to, expand my business. And that's the only way you're going to survive. And that's with anything. It doesn't matter if you're a construction worker or a snake breeder. You can't just assume that you're going to get work. Like, you need to work to get customers.
Exactly.
That's where all these people are failing, is that they're not putting the work into it. They assume that it's going to be easy money. And it was for, a year or two, it was easy money. I've been on both sides of it. I was in before COVID happened. I was selling during COVID, and now I'm here afterwards. And it was absolutely easier to sell in 21 in 22. But now that everything's come back down to earth, or kind of below earth, it's not the same thing. It's a lot more difficult. And if you're not ready to deal with that, you're not willing to pivot or adjust, you're gonna sink. And it's hard.
Yeah, I do feel like how easy it was to sell stuff back then kind of lulled a lot of folks into like a false sense of security. I was always going to be like this, but it's not. Like, I mean, there's work that's involved, and there's a lot of work, especially like when you're balancing a full-time job and doing it. Like, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of like sacrifice and stuff like that you got to make. Sometimes you got to miss sleep. Like, there's all kind of things that you got to put into it. But if you want to succeed long term, you got to be willing to do what it takes to succeed. It's not just easy. I mean, maybe for some folks it's just easy, but for me, for us, like nothing's ever been like just super easy that was like worth me putting in my time to get it. You know what I mean? Like, if it was something I wanted, like I had to work for it, I had to bust my ass for it, and I had to make like sacrifices. That's just part of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've
new here.
I've spent every single penny that I've had extra on this over the past 5 years. I mean, we really haven't taken vacations other than, we went to Ocean City last year, and that was kind of a cheaper vacation. And, I just came back from a vacation, but it was my dad's 70th birthday, and he rented the Verbo house. So it was really just gas money and we haven't been spending money, because I've been trying to build this into something where, I have expendable income that I don't have to worry about money anymore. Because I have a day job that I run. I have an IT company. It's a small business. I have a couple clients, and luckily it pays the bills and gives me some extra money to be able to build my snake business. But I'm at the point now where I can't keep investing a ton of money into Snake Limited. The things I have now need to start kind of paying off. Because I've put a lot of purchases on credit cards. I put a lot of purchases on PayPal credit, because you can get 0% financing through there. I opened up a bunch of new credit cards when I switched to Snake Limited that gave 0% financing for 12 months. So I was smart about how I was making some of these bigger purchases, but it's still debt, right?
Right.
So when I'm, doing months last month where I'm doing BOGO sales so I can make 15 grand in a month or something, it's not money in my pocket. All it's doing is paying off these snakes I bought 6 months ago. So, I mean, they're big sacrifices. Again, luckily my day job pays the bills, and it allows me to, start building this business more, but it's not easy. I mean, the only positive between, with doing this and having my other day job is that my desk is a foot outside of the snake room. So I'm either at that desk doing my IT stuff, or I'm in the snake room doing snake stuff, and I can do both at the same time most of the day. So it makes the actual physical work in the snake room a little easier. But, if I'm in the middle of cleaning rats and I get a phone call, I got to, take off my gloves, throw them away, go out and, go answer the phone call, work on whatever the IT issue is, and come back in and pick up doing, cleaning rat crap again. So it's a lot of juggling and multitasking. But yeah, I mean, I love doing the ball python stuff. That's what I want to do full time. But it makes it hard. You can't, with any business, you can't just pick up and it's not just going to work. You need to work at it. And a lot of the people I talk to that are getting into it, what I tell them is, look, like, you can't do this for 5 years and not have social media. Like, people have to know who you are. Like, you can't just start buying stuff and never talk to people or never interact with people. Just, if you plan on doing this as a business, you need to get on Instagram. You maybe don't have to do YouTube, but you need to get on Instagram. You need to start posting stuff. You need to start liking stuff. You need to start following people. You need to start interacting with people. That's how you start building up your brand.
And show your face.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think that's part of my biggest issue is in terms of branding is I'm more of an introvert. I love talking snakes. And I'll talk to anybody about it, but I'm more of an introvert. And, there's a lot of big personalities in the ball python world. And there's a lot of people that are a little more extroverted than I am. And I think my biggest issue was that it's just that I'm not as outgoing as other people. So while a lot of people know who I am from my YouTube channel, and from Instagram, probably to a lesser extent, I think that's hurt me the most. And that's kind of the one thing that I struggle with is kind of, not being so introverted.
Yeah, I'm naturally introverted. Like, for me, it was a big adjustment when I first started the podcast because I wasn't comfortable speaking in front of a lot of people. And while you can't see like all the people that are out there watching it and stuff like that, you still know that they're there. And so like that was a big step for me. It's just kind of getting more comfortable in that space. Now I don't care. Like, now it's just, it is what it is. And it's actually like really kind of poured over into like my professional life too, right? And so what I mean by that is like I was always like, I mean, like I would really get kind of like sick and queasy, like butterflies in the stomach anytime I had to make like a presentation in front of like a large crowd or just like any kind of thing like that, right? It just wasn't my wheelhouse. And I'm not saying I'm just like this great orator at this point, but I'm certainly not as nervous as I was before, right? And so now it's just kind of like a thing, right? So it's not a big deal. I don't have a problem like speaking in front of a bunch of people. And so like that's been like really kind of like a value add for me for doing the podcast. So not only like meeting new people, getting our name out there, helping build our brand and putting the face with the brand and stuff like that, but then just like the spillover into like my everyday life. So it's helped in that way too. And I harp on putting your face out there too, because like a lot of folks, you just either their hand, their logo, and some of the snakes, but you never really see a face. So it's helpful to see faces. That way you can start associating faces. Because for me, like seeing a face helps me remember a name, like a person's name. I can remember a brand name pretty easy, but like a person's name, like seeing their face and being able to associate that and seeing it like, especially seeing it like more than once, that's helpful too. And so like I knew when I first started posting, like I never put my face in the photos, and like I forgot who it was that told me, it was like, man, put your face out there. Like, and so I might have did it like once or twice before like the YouTube, but it's big. Put your face out there because like you're walking around shows and like people might not even know who you are because all they've seen is your hand. I mean, she's gonna walk around like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've had plenty of people ask me, how do you get started on doing YouTube? I said, just make a video and post it on YouTube. Like I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like if you go back and watch my first ever video, it's like it's me in my old house in the garage against this like creepy ass brick wall. And I don't even remember what I was talking about. But terrible audio and a terrible camera in a terribly lit room with like echoes. And like, you can't get better at something without practicing and
Right.
actually doing it, right? You can't get better at breeding snakes unless you breed snakes, which is why I suggest that people don't go out and buy a $10,000 snake. Buy a couple, lower end things, not like $100 snakes, but buy a couple $500 snakes. Make sure you can take care of them. Make sure you can grow them up. Make sure you can breed them. Make sure you can incubate the eggs, and make sure you can feed the babies. Then get into it, But you still got to practice all those different skills. And YouTube or Instagram, those are some of those things where I'm learning different things about Instagram all the time. And the algorithms change on social media as well. Sometimes they want sometimes static photos are working better. Sometimes reels are working better, and that stuff changes all the time. And you got to figure out what works better for you. But again, you have to actually do those things. You can't just get better at them just by studying, just by asking questions. You actually need to physically do it.
Absolutely, 100%. So, kind of along those same lines, and you touched on this earlier. So, you've got a Patreon. So, speak to like how your Patreon's laid out, like what tiers you got, what you're offering in those different tiers.
Yeah, so I just started it last month. I believe it started in the beginning of July. My whole goal with it was to find an avenue to speak to the people that really need my help. And a lot of people scoff at Patreon, saying that you're charging people for advice, but time is money, and that's the way I look at it. It's a business, and I want to help people, but I don't have unlimited time.
Right.
The people that are willing to spend money to join my Patreon want to learn and want to understand this better. And they want to have somebody to sort of mentor them. And I've had quite a few people over the years say, hey, do you mind mentoring me? I'll pay you a fee. And I said, I really wouldn't know how to do that or where to even start. And I'd feel bad charging you money for it. But I'm sort of using Patreon as that. And so the way that I looked at Patreon was there's a lot of, Billy does it, Ozzy does it, Justin does it, and they've been here for 2 decades doing this stuff. And I learn stuff from Billy all the time. I'm still in his Patreon now. The difference that I've seen with them and from stuff that I can offer is I haven't been here for 2 decades. I'm ahead of where most people are that would be joining my Patreon in terms of growing a business, but I understand the pain of building a business. And I'm still in it. And I think the fact that I can empathize with that, the fact that I'm working through those things in 2023 offers a different perspective. And I feel like kind of offers different advice compared to what some of those other Patreons can do. So like I have 2 tiers at this point, a $25 tier and a $100 tier. The $25 tier, gets access. I don't do like fluff posts. I try not to, because that's what I really use Instagram for. But like the $25 tier gets all the posts in Patreon. I don't like block out any posts in Patreon for different tiers. And that's stuff like I offer business basic tips, either their videos or through text, and simple things. Sometimes as simple as, if you need stickers, go through Sticker Mule. I buy these through all the time. They offer sales every other week. Or this is where I bought my ultrasound from, or this is how I set up my lighting setup for taking pictures of hatchlings. Something that I just figured out: don't store your rat food inside. I kept it in my garage, and I bought like 20 some bags from a store up here that's like Tractor Supply that sells the Kalmbach rat food. And I got grain mites, and they were all over my garage, and they were all over my fridge out in my garage.
Oh, wow.
So I had to basically fumigate the garage and I had to buy a little shed, like a little Rubbermaid shed that I put outside that I have. So little things like that are persistent and easy to find in the Patreon that I'm learning as I go sometimes. That's what everybody sees. In the $100 tier is more, it's everything that's in the $25 tier, plus it is personalized help for the patrons. So that's, ID help with the clutches, business advice in terms of, what should you be investing in, what should you be selling off, where you should be investing in infrastructure for your business and things like that. And once I get more patrons in there, I'm going to be doing live Q&As or live streams, monthly or bi-weekly as well. But at this point, I only have 3 people in there. I'm hoping to build that. But it's growing slowly, but it's getting there. And, for a month, I'm happy with the three people that are in there. 2 of them were past customers, and one of them's a recent customer.
Nice.
So they're people that, I have relationships with. And hopefully they're finding the stuff that I put in there to be useful. Then I do the other stuff where, you get first dibs, on new clutches and new animals. I'll offer the sales that I post on Patreon before I put the sales up, on Instagram or on Morph Market. So they get all the perks that most people give out. But I think what I offer is just a different perspective on running a business in terms of, doing this for 5 years. I feel like I've been pretty successful. I understand the business. I understand how to build it. I'm still going through those growing pains. I'm still trying to get to the point where I need this to be, where I want this to be a full-time job. And I feel like that is, can be a huge benefit to people that are just starting out, or just 2 years in, or 3 years in, or even 5 years in, that still haven't figured it out. And that's, I want to help people. I love talking about snakes with people. I love talking about business with people. I'm very, money oriented in terms of how I'm spending my money and how I'm running the business. And those are the sorts of things that I want to translate to people in the Patreon. And again, I also look at Patreon as sort of like another avenue of building this business, of building Snake Limited. Is, if I can build a big patron base in there, I can invest more time into it. Because if I'm getting more funds from that, and I can take more time away from the day job, then I can put more into it. And like, I know Billy, and are you still in Billy's Patreon?
Not currently, no.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how he has time in the day to spend the time he spends on Patreon, but he does. He must never sleep but he has a huge base of people in there now, and he's making decent money for it. So it makes sense to, invest time into it. And that's the kind of the way I'm looking at it, is if I have a captive audience of people that want to hear what I have to say and can learn from it and grow from it and build their business from it, then I want to talk to them. Like, I don't want to spend tons of time on YouTube where there's everybody and their mom that just have dumb comments to say, like, don't keep snakes in tubs. That's jail for snakes. Like, I don't want to interact with those people. I don't want to have a conversation with them. And I've actually started peeling away from YouTube because of stuff like that, where I used to put out 10, 15-minute long videos. Now I'm just like, I'm trying to do them like quick. I'm doing like 4 or 5 minute, 10 minute at the most, unless there's something that requires a long video. Because I don't want to be wasting my time on it anymore. It's not valuable to me. And to be honest, with the 3 patrons I have, I'm making more money on Patreon right now than I am on YouTube every month. So it's not, you don't hit your audience all the time. And with Patreon, I want to get in front of the people that want to hear what I have to say, and I want to invest my time in them. So that's what my Patreon's all about. People that want to learn, people that want to grow their business, that's where they should be.
Gotcha. Now, that makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. Yeah, I can tell you, you don't make a lot of money on YouTube.
No, it's hard. And
It's
views, I can't, I can't figure out whatever those algorithms are and what gets views and what doesn't, because I've been making the same exact content for 5 years. I've gotten better video quality, better lighting, better audio, and I've tried to kind of trim down how my video process and my editing. But I mean, I had a video, oh man, I forget when it posted. It was either the beginning of, I think it was probably the beginning of 21. It was like my top 5 biggest ball pythons. For some reason, that was before I was even monetized. For some reason, that video took off, and it basically was the reason I got monetized. Ton of views,
nice.
In terms of ball python videos, tons of watch hours, which took me over that limit to get monetized. And for a while there, it was kind of steady and it was nice. And I was at the most I was ever making was like $200 a month off of it. And I was like, I mean, it helps pay the bills a little bit, right? I might pay for my snake food for a month. But now, I mean, it's like sunk so far that, there are months where I'm making under $100 from it. And on average, it's like $130. And if I'm posting usually 2 videos a month and, or 2 videos a week, then let's say it takes 30 to 45 minutes to record those videos. And then it takes another 30 to 45 to edit them and post them. So I'm spending an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours the most every week putting those up. So, 8 hours a month, 10 hours a month at the very most. $10 an hour isn't a good, salary YouTube videos. It's just not. So I've kind of, now it's basically what I use YouTube for is clutch cuttings and clutch IDs. And that's what I'm basically using for at this point. Hey guys, this is clutch number 12. I'm cutting it out. Look how cool this is. And then 2 weeks later, here's a clutch ID for clutch number 12. This is this snake. This is that snake. That's what I use it for. So if people want to see some cool new snakes, they can go on there. If I have somebody interested in the hatchling, I can reference that video and say, look, here's the clutch. Check out what you see. That's all I really use YouTube for at this point. It just doesn't make me any money.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong now. I am appreciative and thankful for the money that I do make from YouTube, but is it the biggest revenue stream for Herp Collectors right now? No, it's not the biggest revenue stream, like not the YouTube money. Shout out to the sponsors too, actually. Yeah, definitely shout out to the sponsors. The sponsors have been like really supportive, and so that's helped a lot too as well. Just getting folks to be willing to like really like get behind you and back you and sponsor you. So that's been helpful. But I mean, you hit the nail on the head in talking about having multiple revenue streams, because like you want to have like multiple revenue streams, because like when you take a hit on one, maybe this other one kind of like makes up the difference, or at least help mitigates the hit, the impact of the hit that you do take. And so like it's good to have like those multiple revenue streams. And so I think that's a smart way to go about doing it. And then like really leveraging your time and getting the best ROI on your time. I think that's another smart way to do it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's for most people that are doing this, it's for business purposes. You're not doing it. Some people do it for a hobby, but I think a lot of people that get into this, I think they have the idea that they maybe want to do it as a full-time job. So if you're doing it as a full-time job, your time is a resource that you need to account for, and there's only so much of it in a day. There's only 24 hours in a day. So you can't just keep giving it away for free. When you're selling a snake, your time is baked into the sale price. How much time did you spend researching the parents and which 2 snakes you wanted to breed? How much time did you spend feeding those parents, pairing those parents, raising up those babies as hatchlings, marketing those babies, creating the listings, taking the photos, talking to people that didn't want to buy that snake? What if you had a picky eater that took a while to get to eat? So you're putting all this time into selling one snake, and you sell it for $150. I can guarantee you that snake lost your money.
Yeah,
$150, the snake lost your money. And people don't look at it like that, and they don't appreciate that people that are doing this as a business have a lot of skin in the game. So, when I do something like Patreon, it's not, me being greedy. It's me trying to build this business out. And having a Patreon affords me, it really does afford me more time to spend with people in the community.
I think one of the issues is, and I've seen this, and just like you, I really kind of stay away from like that type of crowd and stay away from those types of discussions, because like I really have no interest in participating in those conversations, especially if it's not done in a fruitful way. But like a lot of people, they have a hard time wrapping their head around you can do it as a business, and that doesn't mean you kind of inherently don't value the animals that are involved. Like a lot of people feel like if you're thinking about it like strictly from a business perspective, then you're like automatically like not thinking about like the animal's well-being, and that's not the case, right? Like, because I'm sure you take really good care of your animals, just like I take really good care of my animals. Just like a lot of people who do it for a business are still taking really good care of the animals, because if you're not passionate about the animals, if you don't care about the animals, then it's not going to be a business you do for long, because otherwise things are going to suffer. But you can be passionate about the animals, care about the animals, take good care of them, like check off all those boxes, do the right things, but still think about things from a business perspective. Like there's a balance, right? And you can do both. And like I feel like some people kind of get so caught up in you got to do things like one way and think about things one way and really kind of like view it like strictly from like a pet perspective, right? And so I think people kind of emotionally get kind of wrapped up into that.
If you don't think of it like a business, then you're not going to be in business very long. It's just how it is. But these snake, I know all these snakes' personalities. I spend so much time in here every day that every single one of these hatchlings, I mean, I've had probably 50, 60 hatchlings come through here at this point. I know every single one of them. I'm spending so much time in here with these snakes, and maybe I'm not holding them 5 hours a day each. But I know which ones are shy, which ones are aggressive, which ones are going to try to bite my face off, which ones I can give my 5-year-old to hold. And you take care of them like they're all your kids. And that's what I'm in here doing every day, because part of your responsibility as a snake breeder or any animal breeder is to take care of your animals.
Yeah.
And you can tell who does and who doesn't. And anybody that's ever purchased a hatchling from me has received a snake that is completely healthy and is thriving the second they get it. And the reason I prefaced hatchling is because I have sold adults that were picky eaters that I've put in the morph market listing. This snake is a pain in the butt. I don't know if you're going to eat. I'm just letting you know now. It's like as is. Do not come back and tell me that it's not eating for you. But
at least you put it all out there.
But yeah, I mean, I'm always honest about it, because I don't want it coming back to me, which is why I have a 5-star rating on Morph Market with 130 plus reviews. But the hatchlings are always eating, and they're always healthy, and that's how you get customers to come back, and that's how you get 5-star ratings, and that's how you get perfect ratings. And perfect reviews, because you're selling stuff that's healthy. And these snakes wouldn't be healthy if I wasn't caring for them properly, or if I didn't care about them at all. So, that's only a part of it. And the other part is running it like a business. And if you're not running it like a business, then you're not going to be in business long.
100%. So I do want to take a brief pause for the calls. We're going to play the sponsor video, and then we'll be right back.
Awesome.
Peace and love, family. We invite you into the heart of our serenity, Ancestral Royal Pythons. At Ancestral Royal Pythons, we're not just breeders, we're nurturers of love and growth. Each of our high-end ball pythons is a tribute to the grandeur of the natural world and our dedication to quality. Reach out today and bring one of our creations into your home. This is Ancestral Royal Pythons. Your journey begins here.
Here's to the exciting world of Ebony and Ivory reptiles. From unforgettable parties and events to keeping and hatching some of the dopest reptiles in the reptile hobby, we're all about education, quality, integrity, and respect. Hit us up and see how we can help make your next project a reality. Experience Ebony and Ivory reptiles, where fascination meets fun.
Ebony and Ivory reptiles.
Yeah, so I want to talk about like technology and like the technologies that surround the industry. So like one of the big things going on right now, obviously, is genetic testing. So how have you like leveraged the genetic testing, or have you actually leveraged the genetic testing, and like how's your game plan in that space?
I have, and I think the biggest thing with genetic testing for me has been proving out a pos het. So I had a ultramel het pied male that had a bunch of genetics in him that I got from Aussie that I bred to. What did I breed him to? I bred him to in a het ultramel, and I got two really awesome looking ultramel females that had a bunch of genetics in them, and they had pied markers, but they were only pos het pied, right? So I took in their shed test, and they both tested, positive for het pied. So they're holdbacks because they're ultramel het pieds, and they each have 2, 3, 4, 5 genes in them. So they're, invaluable to me. So from that perspective, trying to figure out what I want to hold back, it's been valuable. I don't know if I'll get into testing snakes that are pos hets if I know I'm going to sell them from the beginning, because $60 for a test, $50 for a test, it might raise or lower the value of the snake. I don't know if I'll get into that, but like I did have a mystery snake pop out that I actually did sell, and I don't know where it came from. So I had a clutch. It was that same male from Aussie. He was sold to me as a leopard firefly orange dream ultramel het pied. And I was seeing some weird things in earlier clutches, and I had this other clutch, and he was bred to a pastel pied female. And I got this snake that looked like an ivory. It was all completely white. Well, the snake from Aussie wasn't supposed to have yellow belly, and this other female wasn't supposed to have yellow belly or anything in that complex. So I talked to Charlie at Gray Rider Reptiles. I sent in the shed, and he tested positive for yellow belly, but not ivory. And I believe then he also did gravel for me as well, and he tested negative for gravel. So then Charlie actually took the shed and sent it into RGI for me to do a full panel, because they do all the other super stripe, yellow belly complex genetics. Mm-hmm. Because I still feel like this snake has to be some allelic combo with yellow belly. So then I look back and I asked Aussie, because I didn't have the pairing records from the male I bought from Aussie. And I said, what was his pairing exactly? Because I'm seeing some weird stuff. And Aussie said, well, to be honest, I think he was Enchi as well. But Aussie sent me the pairing records, and one of the parents had yellow belly in it. So it helped me kind of figure out that this male also has yellow belly, right? So this male that was 4 genes turns out to be 5 or 6 genes. And he's all that much more valuable to me at this point. But now this snake, I already sold the snake, and I sold it as a mystery snake, and I, gave them the information I had, but I'm still waiting for this genetic test to come back, because RGI has been taking about a month to get results back. So, I mean, it's with things like that, where you're getting mysteries. Neither parent was supposed to have yellow belly or specter or asphalt. But I get a snake that's all white that looks like an ivory. And I'm like, well, where am I getting these special extra genetics from? Right. And so that's how to me where I think it's very important. And I think I just saw the video where RGI said they're supposed to have 30 more new tests out or something by October.
Yeah, I saw that. There's a ton that's going to be rolled out. So that's
So
dope.
now I'm hoping that that full panel test for $120 is still $120 when that happens. Because I'm sure, I mean, I'd be utilizing that a lot more on some of these snakes where I have no idea what's going on. You know, if you can test for leopard and orange dream and, you know, all these other incomplete dominant traits. I've hatched out quite a few snakes this year where I'm like, I have no idea what this is. Like, it's just, I can't find, if I put in those genetics from the parents in Morph Market and I look through the calculator and I click on all the different combos, there's nothing that looks like it.
Right.
So either the people that are listing them have the genetics completely wrong, you know, and they're IDing them wrong when they sell them, or there's some other hidden gene in the one that I produced. Genetic testing solves that. You know, it takes all the guesswork out of it, which is where, for me, it's important when I'm trying to pair things up a year or two down the road. I know what that snake has. I know what I'm breeding it to and what it has, and it makes the ID all that much of the offspring a little easier. But when I buy a snake, like when I bought the snake from Ozzy, I knew that it's a guess. You know, nobody else at that point. I think that male that I bought was the only leopard OD Firefly Ultra Male Het Pied. I hadn't seen another one like it for sale. Maybe somebody had one in their collection. Well, turns out to be Yellow Belly too. So I'm not mad at Ozzy because I had an extra gene.
Right.
And I wouldn't be mad if it didn't have, you know, one of those genes in there as well, because I understand that it's all I guess
Theoretical ID. Yeah.
Right. And that's the one thing I need to say to everybody, and that I wish people talk about more, is the only thing that should be guaranteed are the recessives.
Right.
If you're producing everything that I produce, I guarantee the recessive traits. If it's 100% het, I guarantee it because I know what the pairing is. If I bred a clown to a pied and a normal comes out, that's because it's a double het clown pied, and I guarantee that it's double het clown pied. But when you're breeding snakes together that have 5, 6, 7, 8 incomplete dominant genes, and those genes can have different variances in how they look, was it polymorphism, I believe is what they call it.
Yep.
You can't positively ID that, and you can't even compare it to the other stuff that's been on Morph Market. So yeah, if you get a snake that has 4 or 5 genes and you're kind of miffed because it's missing one of them when you go to breed it, well, you got to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's part of the game.
Yeah, and I even put a disclaimer in my listings now. If I'm not positive of genes in there, I'll list it as, you know, pastel, leopard, clown, het pied, possible orange dream. You know, it's not a super complex combo, but to me, sometimes if there's something that's right on the border, I'll list it as possible OD. And if it proves out OD, or if you think it's OD and you win, then you win. But I put a disclaimer at the bottom of all my listings on Morph Market that say recessive genetics are guaranteed. Incomplete dominant genetics are theoretical IDs, or the best guess with the information that I have. So don't be upset if it's missing something, and don't be upset if you have an extra gene. So, but genetic testing, I think, is invaluable with some of this stuff. I had somebody on Instagram actually contact me last month or 2 months ago about sending in sheds for testing MJ Exanthic to RGI. And I haven't had a chance to send it in yet because I was waiting to get all the sheds that I had. But so stuff like that, where, you know, if it's a new shed test and they test it for free, like the DG stuff they did 2 months ago, I sent in my 2 DG sheds for that because they're both het DG. So I wanted to see kind of what they have. Stuff like that's invaluable because I have 2 pos het MJ pied snakes, and if they turn out to be 100% MJ, then their value to me skyrockets because they're pied het clowns. So, it's a good thing. I think it only helps the industry. It's not accessible though. It's still kind of expensive, I think, for a lot of people. $50-$60 to test for one gene is a lot, especially if you're buying a pet or if you have one or two snakes. $50-$60 can feed most people snakes for a couple months. So to be able to shell that out when you're not running a business is a big expense. So hopefully some of those prices come down. But for me,
Yeah, I hope so too.
for me, like those two females, those ultra male females that I kept, they had het pied markers, but I wanted to be sure, or because they were getting sold. If not, to me, having that assurance that they're het pied was kind of invaluable for me in terms of what my plans are going to be in 2 years when I'm breeding them.
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm not going to test stuff that I know I'm going to sell, at least not at this point. Maybe if the price comes down a little bit, maybe I'll change like that strategy. But for right now, I'm not going to test stuff that I know that I want to sell. I haven't tested anything like to date, but I'll probably be doing some testing this year, for sure.
Yeah. It's check Charlie out from Gray Rider Reptiles. The couple I sent in, actually I sent those two het pieds into them, plus that Ivory male, and I believe an adult, and he got me the shed test back, the results in a day or two.
Oh, really? Is he testing for clown? Yeah.
He doesn't have clown yet.
Okay.
As of the last time I checked. But I believe he has pied, he has yellow belly, he had gravel. I think he still had ultramel. I don't know if he took it off like RGI did. I believe he has hypo, I think lavender. So he doesn't. I think his issue is that he can't sequence everything on his own, so he needs to have everything publicly released so that he can do it. But the things he can do, he does them extremely fast. So I mean, I use him for everything that I can use him for. But if I need a full panel, like I sent 2 snakes in for, I go through RGI, because still $120 is a decent price to figure out, what 20 genes that they test for. Does he have any of them? But their turnaround time is a lot longer. So if you want something quick, and Charlie can do it, check him out.
Gotcha. I put a confusion het Batman to an ultramale, and so I'll be testing for clown for some of those babies. Assuming like the clutch goes well and everything works out the way it's supposed to work out, I'll be testing for clown for some of those babies for sure.
That's a big clutch.
And hopefully, like the odds God smile on me.
Yeah, I mean that's an impressive clutch. I need to get more. I don't have any ultramel clown stuff now, so that's something I need to get into. I was so focused on pied the last couple of years and getting more clown stuff that I kind of, and I have obviously the ultramel pied stuff as well, but I kind of, at the point that I was buying all that stuff, there wasn't a lot of ultramel clown stuff going around. So now I'm kind of behind the 8 ball on those, but I got to work those in too. So that's a cool clutch.
Appreciate it. And there's more stuff kind of floating around out there in the Ultra Clown project, as you know, but it's still not a ton. But
No.
like I hear a lot of people talking about working it. So
yeah, I mean, Ultra Pied is the same way. There's not even Ultramel. Like a couple of the snakes that I've produced in Ultramel, like you don't find a lot of them, and they look fantastic. Like I produced a bamboo pinstripe Ultramel 2 years ago.
I remember that one,
and I kept one of them, but it's a just fantastic looking adult snake. It's a 1,700 gram snake at this point. It still looks fantastic. So there's a lot to do with Ultramel, Ultra Pied, and Ultramel Clown. And like those are the sorts of projects that people need to kind of think about a little more. That you probably have a better place to get a full hold into in the project rather than trying to chase everything.
right?
Because there's still not a lot of it. Like a lot of the pied head ultramel stuff that I produced this year, nobody else was producing. Unfortunately, the stock market dropped on ball pythons. But the holdback, I mean, I have maybe 10 holdbacks in that project right now that in 2 years are going to be just destroying the game, I would think, in the ultra pied project, because nobody's layering genetics like that in those projects. They're all focusing on clown and DG, which is fine because I mean I'm doing it too. That's just kind of the way everything's going. But it doesn't mean that you can't, carve out your little niche with the side projects.
Absolutely. Have you tried the Morph Maker AI yet?
I haven't. The first time I saw that was a couple days ago. What is that a website? It's on a website.
Yeah. So if you go to like Morph Maker AI IG page, they've got the link to it in their IG profile, and so you just go on there, and it's basically like an image generating like AI that's been trained up on a lot of ball python morphs. The guy, he's been working on it with his son. Like his son, specializes in that, and so and then he's been in the reptile industry for a while, and so it's been a father-son project that they've been working on. And so now this is kind of like version 1.0 of it, if you will. And so there's obviously like improvements and stuff that are going to be made, but I mean it works pretty well for where it's at. It does have like some of the same challenges that a lot of like the image generating AI has. Sometimes like with little like details, every now and then something will come up kind of weird. Like you might get a two-headed snake or a snake that's like segmented in different pieces. But the cool thing is it only takes about 5 seconds or so to generate an image. And so you can just keep pressing refresh, and you're eventually going to come across something that looks pretty cool. And so it made some cool looking like theoretical combos that haven't been made yet, and some of it look really spot on. Obviously the AI is only as smart as like you train it up to be, and so you got to have good data like fed into it for it to be smart enough to kind of like think about it. And it's like I said, it's just really kind of like the version 1.0. So if it just keeps getting better and better and better, I think it'll be a useful tool, or at least something fun just to kind of play around with.
Yeah, just to visualize what you have the potential to make. I guess now a lot of that is, so are they taking like single genes and mashing them up together, or are they actually taking combos into the AI to create new combos? So like, is it only taking a pastel and an enchi to create a pastel enchi, or can you put a pastel enchi in a Mojave confusion, and will it generate something with all 4 of those genes in it?
So you can generate something with like all 4 of the genes in it. Like there's still some pieces, and obviously I'm just talking from having played around with it like for a couple of days. Like there's some things like, for example, I put in a lesser Mojave because I kind of want to like stress test it, if you will.
Yeah.
And so I put in a lesser Mojave, and it showed me like a generated image of what a lesser Mojave would look like if it wasn't a bell, right? So like if it wasn't like a blue-eyed Lucy, and you just saw like lesser and Mojave kind of like interacting without like it being an all white snake, that's how I would envision it to look. And then I tried a super chocolate, super spot nose clown, and obviously you can't have that because chocolate and spot nose are allelic, and so like it still generated like an image for that. But it does like kind of like compile images. Now in terms of like the images that it was trained on, I don't know if it was trained on like single gene combos or 2 gene combos. I don't know like kind of how like they made the sausage. So it does though like generate like more complex combos. Like I wanted to see what a GHI confusion spot nose clown would look like. And like I got a pretty good image of it. Like it's on my page. I shared it on my IG. It looks pretty cool.
I'll have to look into it. I might get off this later and start.
I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool looking. Like, and that's a snake that I hope to hit in the near future, like that or better. And so,
yeah, awesome.
Pretty cool.
I'll look into it. I haven't seen that yet. Yeah, AI, I guess, is the future of most things.
Yeah. Hate it or love it, we're here.
Yeah, we are. And I guess if it helps you, some of those combos that haven't been made yet, I wonder, if somebody does the AI generated version of it now, if they could screenshot it and compare it to what actually comes out, in a year or two, if it's actually close to it. Like if just taking confusion and Mojave and clown and splicing them together, if it really figures out how to put all those patterns and colors together, and if what comes out on the other side of it's similar to the actual snake.
Yeah, that's what I can't wait to see, like how how close is it? I imagine some it's probably going to hit spot on, some it's probably not going to even be close.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll be kind of cool to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, as long as how long until somebody uses one of those AI images to try to sell a snake?
Oh, it's going to happen. Like they probably have already done it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh god,
It's definitely going to happen. So buyer beware. You got to. That's when you got to be a smart buyer and know like who to buy from, like what kind of signs to look for. Like you got to do your due diligence.
Yeah, there's a lot of shitty sellers out there.
So maybe that's the topic for your Patreon. Like really, like hey guys, this is out here. This is how to think about it.
Yeah, yeah. The first time I saw it was, I feel like 2 or 3 days ago, and that's what I mean. Like I'm not on social media a lot, so like it's really just me posting, more so than interacting. So I haven't seen it, and I was on vacation last week, so it's the first time I came across it. I didn't know necessarily what it was, so you're educating me a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty cool too, though. I like it. Yeah, I played around with it for a little bit, like last couple of days, just like seeing what stuff would look like. So
yeah, I'll look into it later.
Saw some really cool looking projections.
Yeah, I can imagine. Hey, I might put some of my my crazy combos for next year in there to see what I could be producing. I might make me a little too excited for next year to come.
Cool, man. So in wrapping up, let's reflect on your journey a little bit and talk about like what's been like the most unexpected personal growth that you've kind of received by going through this and operating Snake Limited, and things of that nature.
Unexpected growth. I think it's really, I was never somebody that gave up at stuff, but I was also not somebody that ever really tried hard at things. I think the perseverance of trying to build your own business and trying to overcome obstacles and trying to figure things out on the fly, is kind of the thing that stands out most to me, I guess. And really the first time I sold a $5,000 snake, I mean, I probably had never been more proud of myself or felt more satisfaction with myself. That was, when was that? That was last year. So I was 30. I don't know how old. My wife says, how do you not know how old you are? I'm like, I don't care how old I am.
Yeah, I forget sometimes too. I have to like legit think about it all the time.
I was 36 or something last year. I don't know. And it's probably the most proud of myself that I'd ever been, because I spent years building up to that point. And I made some great investment choices, and I sold multiple $5,000 snakes. It was like, and you're getting $5,000 paychecks, multiple times in the same week. It's a good week.
Yeah, that's nice.
Especially when you're not used to making that sort of money, so I think the growth for me was that realizing this is something I can do and that I'm good at it, and that I have the ability to make this into something special, and having kind of building that confidence in myself of, I got this, I can do it. It's not easy, but it's what kind of, pulls me up by the bootstraps when, you're having a tough year or when prices plummet. That, it's a business and it sucks, but I can do it. I can figure it out. I figured out how to do it last month. I'll figure out how to do it next month, and I'll figure out how to do it next year. And that's what you have to do to survive and grow. And, I think that's kind of what it is just kind of adapting.
Dope. That's a real cool answer, man. Real good answer. Very insightful. All right, man. So as we wrap up, I do have like random questions that I ask everybody at the end.
Sure.
And so you may have heard some of these, especially if you listen to previous episodes, but we'll start with the first one. So if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
That's a hard one. I would say Australia, because
Nice.
out of all the places I've been, that's been my favorite place to visit. It's close enough to the United States in terms of culture. Everybody speaks English there. I don't have to learn a new language. There's the tropical aspect of it, the beautiful beaches, the awesome wildlife. There's just kind of like, it instantly clicked with me when I went there. So I would say there.
Nice. Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. Yeah, and there's definitely some good herping to do in Australia. Be careful.
Yeah. Dangerous.
All right. So if you won $10 million tomorrow, how would you use it?
I'd stop working my day job. I would probably pay off the debt for my immediate family. Maybe help some people, some other people I know that could use the help financially. And I'd set up a fund for my kids to make sure that they were, taken care of for the future. And then I would probably my I don't know if it's the introvert in me or not, but I've always been I don't know how to say this, not sound like a weirdo. I've always been more inclined to empathize with like animals than I have with people. I mean, it's like a weird answer, but I would, donate some of the money to helping animals in some cause, in wildlife, or whether it's rainforest preservation or something like that. Because people worry about themselves a little too much, and they don't worry about what they're doing to the earth. And I'm not, I'm not going to join Greenpeace, and I'm not a tree hugger by any means. But I still understand the importance of nature and, the circle of life. And
Absolutely.
I want that to be preserved for my kids and my grandkids. So I'd make sure that I was set up well for the rest of my life, so I didn't have to worry about anything. But I would definitely make sure that some of that money is getting put back to help preserve what we have here on the planet.
That's dope, man. That's dope. So last one of these, if you could have dinner with any 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Steve Irwin was the first person that popped in my mind, only because I think he did so much for wildlife, for herps as well. He kind of brought animals and that whole culture, I think, to the forefront. And he just seemed like a really awesome guy. So I'd like to meet him. The next person was Bret the Hitman Hart.
Oh, nice.
I grew up loving wrestling. I even watched wrestling into my mid-30s. But he was my favorite wrestler growing up. I've always loved watching him wrestle, loved his work ethic. So I'd like to meet him as well. Just kind of like a childhood, hero. Third person, that's a tough one. I don't have anybody else jumping off the top of my head. It's the third person I'd want to meet. I really don't know who a third person would be. That's
all right. So quick follow-up question on Bret. So what's one question you would ask him?
Oh man, I'd ask him about the Montreal screw job. I'd want to know like how it actually went down. Like there's a little bit of the videotapes and a little bit of the documentaries that happened, but I'd really want to know like the actual details about what happened in the Montreal screw job. Do you know what that is?
It's escaping me now. Like I've heard the term, but
yeah, he was like getting ready to leave the company to go to WCW, and him and like Shawn Michaels were having a feud at that time, and he didn't want to lose the title to Shawn Michaels in Canada because Bret Hart's from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
They I believe they did a quick count on him. Like McMahon agreed to that, but they ended up doing a quick count on during the match, and he lost the title in Canada. So it was like, I mean, he apparently like punched or assaulted McMahon in the locker room afterwards. But it was like a big thing back in the 90s about how that went down. So yeah, I'd wanted to. It was a big controversy back in the day, and kind of still is, even though they kind of made up. So I'd be curious to hear about the details about that.
Nice. Yeah. I used to watch wrestling a ton back in the day. And I remember that term, but I didn't remember all the specifics on it. I know back in the day, like I had a bunch of like wrestlers that I really like Sting and Ultimate Warrior. They were two of my favorites back in the day. Who else? The Steiner brothers, you remember them?
Yeah. Everybody loves Sting though. I mean, he was kind of, the Crow. He was kind of like the guy to love back then.
Oh yeah. We used to like have like little fake wrestling matches and stuff like as kids and stuff, and like would try to do like the moves and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I'm surprised I never snapped something on my little brother trying to I'll drive him or something.
Yeah, fun times, man. Fun times. And for the longest, like you can like people would try to tell me, oh, this is fake. Like a lot of this is staged. I didn't believe it when I was a kid.
I'm sure I got arguments when other kids in school when that happened. Yeah. Like, oh, that's fake. Yeah. I'm like, no, it's not. It's real. Look.
He's bleeding.
I had those arguments. He's bleeding, man. Look, he's blood gushing down his face. He smacked my head with a chair. Little do you know as a kid that it's fake, but it's not fake. I mean, those guys got like serious injuries from doing this, pulling the stunt. I mean, it's I'd rather be a stuntman, I feel like, in a Hollywood movie than do some of the crap that they were doing back in the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, because a lot of that stuff was risky business. Like they were like seriously putting their bodies at risk doing it, like for an entertainment value.
Yeah, like Mankind jumping off the top of a steel cage in the table.
Fun times, man. Fun times, man. Man, this has been a great interview. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. Really means a lot. Like I know time is money, time is valuable. So anytime someone's willing to spend time with us, we really appreciate it, man. So is there anything you want to tell listeners about what's on deck for Snake Limited? Any things to keep an eye out for? Anything you want to plug? Shout outs you want to give? The floor is yours, bro.
Sure. So if you guys don't know me, check out my YouTube channel, Snake Limited. I'm on Instagram at Snake Limited. I have my Patreon that I just set up at Snake Limited. As you can see, it's spelled up here, SNKE LTD. I actually have the website too, snakelimited.com, with the links to all of my different things. I have a lot of clown pied project stuff coming up the rest of the year. Some more ultramelt pied project stuff coming up. And I'm going to have a huge year next year. But I guess my biggest thing is building my Patreon patron base. I'm really trying to build that up. I want to reach out and help as many people as I possibly can to help build their business. I'm doing it. I've been there, and I'm still doing it. I feel your pain when it's hard to sell these snakes. I feel your pain when you're having issues feeding these babies or trying to get the pairings right or having bad clutches come out. And when you're a smaller business, when you're just starting off, I understand that losing one clutch kills you. Losing a couple babies kills you, because it not only does it hurt you, emotionally, it hurts your business because you were counting on those snakes. So I understand all that stuff more than I would probably say most of the bigger guys out there, not to take anything away from them, but it hurts me too. So I'm there with you guys. I can empathize with everything you guys are going through. And my Patreon is set up to kind of help minimize the issues you guys are having, minimize a lot of the speed bumps that I went through. In the past 5 years, it just happened to me, and I don't want it to happen to you guys. I want to help you guys get over those humps. I want to help you guys figure it out. And I want to set you guys off on the right foot so that you're not going through a lot of the growing pains that I went through.
Cool, man. Great response, man. Yeah, y'all definitely go check out all of the social media platforms. Check out IG, check out YouTube, and definitely go through and check out the Patreon. We will put the links for everything in the description of this video, so make sure you go out and check this out. Appreciate everybody that's taking the time to hang out with us and listen to the show. Anyone that's catching it as it premieres, or that's going to catch the replay. Probably if you're watching this when it premieres, I will probably be in Daytona at the time, because it's coming out this Thursday at 8 p.m. We're recording it here on a Tuesday, but definitely, man, everyone, I hope to see you in Daytona. John, I hope to meet you in person someday. Again, thanks for coming out. Make sure y'all show the channel some love too. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you smash that notification bell. Definitely make sure you check out all the sponsors. Their links are in the description of this video. Definitely give them a follow and let them know, hey, we're supporting you, man. So definitely thank you for coming out. Be blessed. Peace.